Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really vital: the current state of American higher education. You sent us the book, How to Run a College, and it's packed with insights. Our job here is to pull out the key challenges and, the real opportunities facing colleges and universities right now.
Exactly. What's great about this book is that it gives us an optimistic yet very grounded view of what's happening. It's not just about like how colleges are surviving, but why they absolutely must adapt and what the core elements are that make them succeed or will struggle.
Yeah.
We're going to cover everything from how these places are run to where their money comes from, what student life is like, and even the role that athletics plays.
Okay, so to really understand the pressures today, I think we need a bit of a historical lens.
Yeah.
It's easy to assume all this change is brand new, but the book reminds us that higher education in America goes way back, right, to the Enlightenment, where it was seen as essential for creating good citizens.
That's a fundamental point. Even in the early days of the country, establishing colleges was a real priority. Then in the 19th century, you saw massive growth, partly driven by religious groups, but also crucially by the Morrill Acts, which led to our land-grant university.
Right, the land-grant colleges.
Yeah, it's quite something to think about these institutions taking root in what was often, undeveloped territory because they were considered so important to the nation's future.
And the authors of How to Run a College make a pretty strong argument that the pressure on higher ed to change now is actually greater than ever before, even when we look back at really tough economic times like the Depression of the 1870s and the Great Depression. That really reframes things, doesn't it?
It does. The book points out that the economic struggles of the 1870s were intensified by the immense human cost of the Civil War. And of course, the sheer scale and length of the Great Depression had a profound impact across all sectors. Both of those periods forced colleges into incredibly difficult positions, sometimes even requiring mergers just to stay afloat.
Which the book illustrates with some fascinating examples. One that really grabbed me was the formation of Southwestern University in 1873. It wasn't a brand new school, but a combination of four existing ones.
Exactly. Four. You can imagine the upheaval that caused for everyone involved.
Totally.
And the backstory is quite compelling, actually. One of the original founders had even come from Allegheny College in Pennsylvania, drawn to Texas with the mission of, well, educating preachers. Decades later, one of the strongest of the four, Seoul University, was facing significant debt, partly due to the lingering economic effects of emancipation. Merging was a drastic step, but, ultimately necessary for survival. This highlights an early insight. Even in challenging times, preserving the educational mission often requires significant structural change.
Then we have the story of Lombard College and Knox College during the Great Depression. That sounds like it moved incredibly fast. The presidents met, and within days they had a basic agreement to merge.
What's fascinating here is the speed. It was driven by Lombard's precarious financial situation. The initial announcement focused on the idea of cooperation, enhancing educational opportunities.
Right.
However, as the details emerged, Lombard's financial difficulties were really laid bare. Knox agreed to admit Lombard's students and even some faculty, but crucially, they weren't going to take on Lombard's existing debts. So this wasn't a full financial rescue, but rather an academic lifeline.
Right. So the Lombard students got to continue their studies at a more stable institution, and their tuition even stayed the same initially. It's also interesting that they considered things like Greek life.
Yeah, some Lombard fraternities and sororities eventually found homes at Knox. It really shows the human considerations even in these big institutional shifts. It truly underscores the human element. And as the book reminds us, these proposed mergers didn't always come to fruition. Take the University of Chicago and Northwestern University during the Great Depression. That sounds like it would have created a real academic powerhouse in Chicago.
Absolutely. Two major institutions, same city, exploring the idea of combining strengths. The initial report even outlined a unified academic program across their campuses. Yet, ultimately, it never happened.
Yeah, the book doesn't detail all the reasons why the merger fell through, but it suggests that the specific conditions at the time weren't conducive to making it a reality, even though it seemed like a desirable outcome on paper.
Interesting.
Both institutions obviously went on to thrive independently, illustrating that even seemingly logical consolidations can fail.
Then we have President Reynolds of Hendrix College in 1934, who observed this growing trend of bigger and better in higher education. He questioned whether larger size automatically equated to higher quality and emphasized the inherent value of smaller colleges.
His perspective remains incredibly relevant today, actually. He wasn't necessarily against growth or consolidation. Hendricks himself had recently merged with two smaller institutions to achieve greater financial stability while preserving those small college values.
Ah,
He also pointed to interesting models, like the federated colleges at the University of Toronto and the Claremont colleges, where students gain the advantages of both a small, intimate learning environment and the broader resources of a larger university system.
right.
This highlights the ongoing tension between scale and individualized attention in higher education.
It's like trying to find that perfect balance, the ideal size and structure for long-term success. And all this historical context brings us to the Great Recession. The book argues that this period really exposed some fundamental weaknesses in how colleges were being managed.
Precisely. It's when a lot of the underlying operational and structural vulnerabilities came to light. Suddenly, revenue streams tightened, the pool of potential students shifted, and, well, the willingness of families to pay increasing tuition became a major question.
Yeah.
Institutions that hadn't proactively addressed foundational issues really felt the strain.
Which leads us to the crucial topic of governance and management. The book describes the traditional structure as a three-legged stool: administration, faculty, and the board of trustees. It sounds straightforward, but when those legs aren't coordinated, the whole thing can become very unstable.
That's the core idea.
Hmm.
Each group has a distinct role. The administration handles the day-to-day. The faculty are the guardians of the academic programs, what students learn, and the trustees, acting as fiduciaries, are responsible for the long-term health and policy, including hiring and overseeing the president.
Right.
The problems arise when these roles overlap inappropriately or when one group oversteps its authority.
Especially the board of trustees. The book points out that many private colleges have quite large boards, which can become difficult to manage effectively. And there are also key differences between public and private boards, right, in terms of funding and oversight.
Yeah, exactly. What's fascinating here is this suggestion that often a smaller executive committee within a larger board wields the real power, potentially making the rest of the board more advisory. But regardless of size, the primary responsibility of the trustees is fiduciary stewardship, essentially, managing the college's assets and ensuring its long-term financial well-being.
And then you have the faculty, described as the keeper of the flame. They really embody the history and the fundamental mission, and they have significant influence, particularly concerning the academic program, again, what students actually learn.
Their role in shared governance, a system where faculty, administration, and the board have defined roles, is undeniable. They are deeply invested in the curriculum and the educational experience.
Mm-hmm.
Their input shapes much of what a college does, from budget priorities to its overall culture. However, the book also notes the faculty can sometimes be very process-oriented and, well, resistant to rapid changes in governance.
Communication seems to be the essential element holding the shared governance model together. The book emphasizes the importance of both open communication and transparency, although it clarifies they aren't exactly the same thing.
That's a really important distinction. Transparency means having regular, predictable ways of sharing information, like reports, websites, open meetings. Communication is the ongoing dialogue, the willingness of all parties to engage directly.
Okay.
And technology, especially social media, has significantly complicated the landscape of transparency.
It's definitely a double-edged sword, isn't it? Social media can be a fantastic tool for quickly disseminating information, connecting with different generations, but it can also easily become a source of misunderstandings and erode trust if it's not handled thoughtfully.
Absolutely. Unfiltered platforms like email and Twitter can unfortunately become breeding grounds for misinformation. Which brings us to the crucial role of the president. The book stresses that the president needs to have clear authority to lead, especially in managing their senior administrative team. And the board needs to empower the president to do that, to keep noses in and fingers out, as the saying goes.
Board interference in the day-to-day operations sounds like a recipe for real trouble, doesn't it? It can undermine the president's ability to lead effectively and make it incredibly difficult to implement any kind of coherent strategic vision.
Exactly. A strong president needs to be able to build a loyal and effective senior team. If the board is constantly meddling, or if senior staff have stronger loyalties to individual trustees than to the president, it creates a very dysfunctional and inefficient environment.
And when it comes to planning for the future, the book makes a really important distinction between strategic and tactical plans. It argues that sometimes you have to address those immediate pressing issues, the tactical problems, before you can effectively focus on long-term strategic goals.
That makes perfect sense. You can't really chart a course for the future if you're constantly dealing with immediate crises. Addressing those critical, right now, problems like budget shortfalls or declining enrollment provides the necessary stability to then develop a comprehensive strategic plan that incorporates input from the whole campus community.
Now, let's talk about the financial side. College finances can seem incredibly complex, and the book tackles some common misunderstandings, particularly around institutional endowments. I think many people imagine most colleges are sitting on vast piles of cash, like a few of their really elite institutions.
That's a huge misconception. The vast majority of American colleges and universities are heavily reliant on tuition revenue. The book presents some really eye-opening statistics about just how concentrated endowment wealth is. A relatively small number of institutions hold the vast majority of these funds.
Wow.
So for most schools, the financial reality is, well, it's a much more delicate balancing act, with constant pressure to manage budgets carefully. This disparity means most institutions are constantly vulnerable to fluctuations in enrollment and tuition revenue.
And even institutions with substantial endowments can run into trouble if those funds aren't managed wisely. The example of Wesleyan University and their endowment challenges really highlights that it wasn't just about investment performance, was it?
Exactly. Overspending from the endowment, using donated funds for ongoing operating expenses instead of letting the endowment grow, and a history of lower alumni giving all contributed. It's a reminder that managing an endowment is a long-term endeavor demanding discipline and a clear understanding of sound financial practices.
The book also touches on this concept of innovation and entrepreneurship in strategic planning. It cautions against some common misunderstandings, like simply equating entrepreneurship with taking more financial risk.
What's interesting here is the emphasis on analytical thinking. True entrepreneurship in this context is about identifying a strategic, sure thing, a genuine competitive advantage, rather than just blindly taking gamble.
Right. Not just throwing things at the wall.
Precisely. And the book also challenges the idea of the lone visionary leader, pointing out that innovation can and often does emerge from the shared governance process itself, drawing on best practices from various sectors.
So it's a much more collaborative and thoughtful approach than I think many might assume. And speaking of financial strategies, the book highlights some alternative financing options like USDA rural finance programs.
These programs, offering below-market interest rates and long repayment terms, can be a real lifeline for colleges in rural areas. They can provide crucial funding for infrastructure or even help refinance existing debt, freeing up valuable resources. Plus, the terms are often more flexible than traditional lenders.
Okay, let's shift gears to something absolutely fundamental for every college. Enrollment. The book puts it very directly. Enrollment is code for revenue. That really underscores just how critical it is.
It truly is the lifeblood for the vast majority of institutions. Tuition is the primary revenue source, whether public or private. And the increasing reliance on tuition, even for publics that historically got more state funding, is a significant trend. A successful enrollment strategy impacts long-term viability more than almost anything else.
And the American higher education market is enormous and constantly changing. The book shares some interesting figures on enrollment trends, the growing number of women and students from minority groups.
Absolutely. The demographics are evolving rapidly. We've seen significant increases among Hispanic and Black students, although unfortunately disparities in degree completion still exist. And the market itself is incredibly decentralized and segmented. Public colleges often face unique challenges like legally capped tuition rates,
Which leads to this constant pressure on colleges to attract full-pay students while also increasing financial aid, the discounting, to remain competitive and accessible. It sounds like a really delicate balancing act.
It is.
And the book notes that families are increasingly viewing college as an economic transaction where they feel empowered to negotiate the final price.
That's a fundamental shift. It's no longer solely about prestige or tradition. It's increasingly about perceived value and ROI. And with more institutions competing, applicants often have more choices, giving them greater leverage to shop around for the best financial package.
There's also this ongoing internal debate within colleges, specialized programs versus a broader liberal education. What kind of education best equips students for an uncertain future?
Well, the book strongly emphasizes the enduring value of a liberal education in developing crucial skills: critical thinking, effective communication, problem solving. The argument is that this foundation, combined with creative inquiry, ultimately prepares students for a wider array of careers and personal fulfillment.
even if it's sometimes harder to market directly than a specific pre-professional degree.
Exactly. It's about adaptability.
And when it comes to actually filling an incoming class, there are different categories of applicants, including what the book calls over the transom students. I found that term really intriguing.
Yeah, these are the students who apply largely on their own initiative, without significant targeted recruitment. They don't necessarily fall into specific categories like recruited athletes or legacies, but they're vital for a well-rounded class.
Interesting.
What's interesting is that sometimes these over-the-transom students, who might face slightly higher admissions hurdles, can make up a surprisingly small percentage of the class at institutions with very active affinity-based recruitment.
So enrollment is this complex blend of strategy, genuine human connection, and, as the book says, momentum. You need to generate excitement and align an applicant's aspirations with the institution's identity. It's definitely much more than just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Not at all. It demands careful planning, continuous innovation in recruitment, and a deep understanding of the evolving landscape. And just like enrollment, advancement, which covers fundraising, communications, alumni relations, has become increasingly critical, particularly with flat or declining revenue.
Absolutely. Fundraising campaigns are central now. But the book offers some important cautions, right? About emphasizing massive headline totals without considering cash flow or neglecting the annual fund.
Yes, this focus on big numbers can sometimes lead to less healthy practices, like counting non-cash pledges or overlooking the critical annual fund, which provides immediate unrestricted support. The book advocates for a more balanced approach, maybe focusing on annual campaigns and strategic capital campaigns, sized realistically using a Goldilocks principle to ensure achievable goals and maintain donor engagement.
And leadership plays a huge role in fundraising, with the president often being the fundraiser in chief. It's about embodying the vision and cultivating those personal relationships with major donors.
The president has to articulate the institution's unique story compellingly and connect with donors personally, understanding their philanthropic goals. It's as much about nurturing the relationship as promoting the institution.
Communication strategies have also changed dramatically, especially with social media. The book highlights the double-edged nature of platforms like Twitter and Facebook for colleges.
Right. While social media offers incredible opportunities for direct engagement with everyone, prospective students, current students, alumni, the community, it also carries significant risks of misinterpretation and potential reputational damage. The most effective social media from colleges often feels genuine, even spontaneous. Overly crafted efforts can seem inauthentic. The book mentions presidents who use it well by being themselves, even using humor.
And it can't just be the admissions office driving communications. The book emphasizes needing an integrated marketing effort across the entire institution, attracting students, engaging alumni, cultivating donors.
Exactly. Communications for prospective students can and should be adapted for fundraising and alumni engagement. But this requires a strategic, institution-wide perspective, not just a short-term focus on recruitment targets.
Alumni relations has also become much more sophisticated. It's not just about newsletters anymore. It's about continuously re-engaging alumni throughout their careers.
Viewing alumni as lifelong insiders is key. They've experienced the institution firsthand and often have a deep connection. Engaging them meaningfully, beyond just potential donations, is a huge asset. And, there's a generational shift. Younger alumni often have different needs, particularly around career development and networking.
Providing enhanced career support for alumni sounds like a particularly smart way to foster that lasting connection. And the role of parent relations is also becoming increasingly significant in advancement.
Parents can be incredibly valuable partners. They often see the immediate impact of their giving on their child's experience, and they frequently have connections to different communities the institution might not otherwise reach.
Makes sense.
Just like with alumni, though, it's crucial to align their efforts with the college's strategic priorities, perhaps through trustee representation on parent advisory boards.
All of this underscores that modern advancement is highly professionalized, far beyond just friend-raising. It demands a strategic, integrated approach. And in an environment of limited revenue growth, it's more critical than ever for long-term health.
Precisely. It's about constantly reevaluating how the institution connects with all its stakeholders. Now let's shift focus to the core, academic affairs and the increasing need for restructuring. The book highlights the growing reliance on part-time and contingent faculty.
Which raises some really important questions about the quality and stability of the academic workforce, right? With so many appointments being part-time, often with lower pay and fewer benefits, it's hard to see that as sustainable.
It definitely impacts institutional agility and cost structure, and the potential savings might come at the expense of this student learning experience and faculty morale. The book then explores several examples of restructuring, contrasting Berea College and Arizona State University.
Berea's approach was very much faculty-driven, focusing on interdisciplinary collaboration while keeping strong majors. Sounds like a more organic bottom-up process.
Exactly. They started with the principle that faculty needed to lead academic change. The resulting restructuring, while maybe not immediately obvious to students, did seem to foster more interdisciplinary work and strengthen faculty leadership roles.
Arizona State, on the other hand, took a much more top-down, leadership-driven approach under President Michael Crow, a strong emphasis on global challenges, cross-disciplinary units, and achieving cost efficiencies.
Right. Their restructuring involved significant renaming and consolidation of departments and colleges. The rationale was breaking down silos, encouraging collaboration across disciplines, and generating substantial cost savings. It's a very different model of change, driven by a strong presidential vision and focusing on large-scale impact.
The book also touches on the cost disease in higher education, this challenge of increasing efficiency in labor-intensive services like education without compromising quality. Uses the classic analogy of musicians needing the same time to perform a piece.
It really highlights the difficulty of simply substituting technology for faculty. Like, automation replaces labor in manufacturing. So, discussions about efficiency in academia often revolve around mitigating this inherent cost pressure rather than fundamentally changing the labor-intensive nature of teaching. That's cost disease.
Yeah.
It's hard to get more efficient in service industries like education because the core work needs the same human effort.
And as the book points out, not all restructuring attempts succeed. The example of Purdue's trimester system is a cautionary tale. Looked good on paper for efficiency, but faced challenges in implementation.
Yeah, the faculty never fully embraced it, and ultimately it didn't achieve the intended outcomes. It really underscores the critical importance of faculty buy-in and thoroughly understanding the potential impacts of such significant academic calendar shifts.
On a more positive note, the curriculum transformation at Elon College, now Elon University, sounds really insightful. They intentionally aligned their program with students' dominant learning styles, identified through Myers-Briggs.
That's a compelling example of using data to inform academic innovation. Recognizing many students were extroverted, active learners, they deliberately shifted to a more experiential, 4-hour course model with more hands-on learning. This contributed significantly to Elon's growth and increased selectivity. It's a powerful reminder that a curriculum designed for one type of student might not effectively serve others.
And the accreditation process, which all colleges undergo, plays a vital role in fostering continuous improvement through initiatives like quality enhancement plans or QEPs.
Right, these QEPs are specifically designed to address identified areas for improvement in student learning outcomes and often act as catalysts for innovation.
Yeah.
They can focus on anything from enhancing research skills to strengthening community engagement.
So it's all part of this ongoing cycle: assessment, planning, implementation, evaluation. But the book also points out a fundamental lack of understanding between board members and faculty regarding each other's roles. That seems like a potentially significant obstacle to effective governance.
It absolutely is. Even college presidents often acknowledge this gap, which can unfortunately hinder effective shared governance and create unnecessary tension. Bridging that divide through better communication, mutual respect, and ongoing education about each other's roles is absolutely essential for a healthy institution.
Now let's turn our attention to student life. The book makes a strong argument that student life isn't just extracurricular, it's central to the educational mission, and crucial for retention. It's code for retention.
Exactly. It's not peripheral. The overall environment and experiences outside the classroom significantly influence student satisfaction and their decision to stay enrolled. Housing is particularly important. Many colleges are grappling with aging residence halls that don't meet today's student expectations.
And the decisions about housing, renovate, build new, partner with private developers, represent really significant financial commitments with long-term implications for the budget and attracting students.
They certainly do, often competing directly with demands for updated academic facilities. And the book wisely cautions against amenity wars, building ever more elaborate facilities like climbing walls and lazy rivers without a clear link back to the core academic mission. Institutions need to justify these expenditures thoughtfully in the context of educational goals and financial sustainability.
So how can colleges improve retention through better student life programming? The book suggests it starts with saying no sometimes and instead establishing clear priorities aligned with the college's specific mission and values rather than trying to be all things to all students.
Exactly. Programming needs intentional design, careful measurement, and connection to both the current identity and aspirational goals. It's a dynamic experiment in meeting diverse student needs and supporting their academics.
The campus location, rural or urban, also significantly shapes student life programming, requiring different approaches to create a vibrant environment. And diversity and inclusion initiatives, while essential, come with real financial costs and need commitment from the entire campus, not just the student life division.
Creating a truly inclusive campus requires dedicated resources, ongoing training, and commitment far beyond basic legal requirements. The book also touches on the increasing gender imbalance on many campuses and its potential social consequences for retention and the overall campus environment.
And then there's the long-standing debate around Greek life. While fraternities and sororities have a long history, they face increasing scrutiny about their role in the broader social contract.
Colleges might reduce their influence or move away from traditional Greek life, but on many campuses they remain significant social forces. Finding ways to better integrate them and clearly demonstrate their positive contributions seems increasingly essential for their continued relevance.
Even seemingly mundane things like food services are strategically important, reflecting changing student demographics and expectations. The book raises an interesting question. What businesses should a college actually operate? Manage food service directly or outsource?
It compels institutions to critically evaluate their core competencies and assess if they can efficiently manage all aspects of running, essentially a small town. And the influence of athletics and other special interest groups can sometimes unintentionally skew student life programming away from broader institutional priorities.
Which brings us to the complex world of college athletics. The book traces its history back to ancient Greece and Rome and its evolution in American colleges, highlighting the tensions between individual prowess and team competition.
Athletics is deeply linked to American campus culture for historical, social, and economic reasons. For many students, athletic scholarships are a vital path to an affordable education. And for the campus community, sports can be a powerful unifying force, fostering school spirit.
But the book also points out the significant financial influence donors can have on athletic programs, sometimes leading to non-strategic spending on elaborate facilities or high coaching salaries that don't necessarily align with overall institutional goals.
It's a delicate balancing act between leveraging donor enthusiasm and maintaining institutional control over the athletic program's direction and spending. Colleges need to carefully consider how sponsored sports fit within the broader student life ecosystem and understand the full financial costs involved, both direct and indirect.
The affinity mentoring model from Allegheny College sounds like a really interesting strategic approach to using athletics recruiting to manage enrollment and financial aid.
It's essentially a tiered system aligning financial aid with recruitment goals for different sports, using coaches as frontline recruiters. This model has even been adapted beyond athletics to other student affinity groups, aiming to stabilize enrollment, improve retention, and strategically cap overall financial aid discounting.
Of course, big-time college sports also face significant challenges, exorbitant coaching salaries, the persistent debate about paying athletes. And the academic performance of student athletes is critical, often measured by metrics like the graduation success rate, or GSR.
These are indeed complex issues with substantial ethical and financial implications. The potential for scandals also underscores the critical need for unwavering institutional integrity and oversight. And as the book reminds us, due to financial pressures, some institutions have had to cut athletic programs altogether.
Ultimately, the book argues that intercollegiate athletics can be valuable when its role is clearly defined, understood, and appropriately subordinated to the broader educational mission.
Exactly. It needs thoughtful integration. Now, let's turn to two key areas for the future: strategic collaboration and the effective use of technology. The book highlights the potential for collaboration among institutions to achieve efficiencies, share resources, and create new opportunities.
Consortia like the Five College Consortium in Massachusetts and the Texas Language Consortium offer great examples of pooling resources and expertise, achieving collectively what might be impossible individually.
Carefully selecting partners and planning for systemic changes within each college's budget are crucial for sustainable collaboration. But the potential benefits can be truly transformative, significantly increasing capabilities and creating new opportunities for students, faculty, and staff.
And technology, of course, has had a profound impact on everything in higher ed, from scholarship to teaching. The concept the book mentions, human-computer symbiosis, is a powerful way to think about this.
Technology offers incredible potential to enhance learning, expand access, and overcome geographical barriers. However, without a well-thought-out strategic plan, it can also become a significant budget drain. The key is adopting technology wisely to empower learning and control costs, ensuring it's aligned with institutional strategy and goals.
So as we bring all these pieces together, what does the future actually hold for American higher education? The book reminds us of its remarkable historical ability to adapt to major economic and societal shifts.
Higher education in America has indeed weathered many storms, adapting to successive economic eras. However, the current confluence of challenges, technology, student debt, declining traditional applicant pools, a potentially unsustainable operating model are certainly significant and demand serious attention.
Yet, the authors maintain an optimistic outlook, viewing this as another pivotal moment for essential evolution, no more or less challenging than past critical junctures. They do, however, highlight the increasing unsustainability of current sticker prices and the growing number of students seeking alternatives to the traditional four-year residential experience.
The book also points out a critical failure of higher education as a whole to effectively communicate its fundamental value proposition. Colleges need to clearly and persuasively articulate why their specific offerings are worth the significant investment.
Ultimately, the book argues that colleges must proactively ensure their own future success through adaptability, respect for history, understanding their unique contributions, and balancing transparency, tradition, and innovation. And perhaps most fundamentally, they need to cultivate self-awareness and honestly confront what they don't yet know.
That capacity for critical self-assessment is indeed crucial. The book concludes by highlighting key areas for improvement across the board, starting with governance, which the authors see as potentially the weakest link. They emphasize the need for better informed, strategically focused boards committed to the educational mission.
Effective leadership is also critical strong, empowered presidents with clear authority to manage their senior teams. And financial management needs to go beyond basic audits to a deeper understanding of nonprofit finances and a willingness to embrace responsible, mission-aligned entrepreneurial initiatives.
Enrollment strategies need to move beyond outdated mass marketing to a nuanced, data-driven understanding of demographics and realistic goals. Advancement efforts need to become more genuinely stakeholder-centric, integrating marketing, communications and development, and linking alumni engagement with career services.
Academic affairs divisions need to fully value faculty as the heart of the institution and drivers of innovation. Student life programs need professionalization and recognition as vital for retention. And athletics programs need thoughtful integration with clear objectives and transparent financial understanding.
Finally, strategic technology use needs to focus on enhancing learning and controlling costs, and interinstitutional collaboration should be actively explored for the common good and advancing the educational mission.
So, as we conclude this deep dive into how to run a college, it's clear that American higher education is navigating significant challenges, but also tremendous opportunities for thoughtful adaptation and strategic reinvention.
Despite the pressures, these institutions remain absolutely vital avenues for individual growth, critical thinking, and driving societal progress.
And on that thought, here's one final question for you to consider. As you think about the colleges and universities, what do you believe is the right balance between honoring tradition and embracing necessary innovation? What are the crucial elements that will determine which institutions not only survive but truly thrive in the evolving landscape of the 21st century? It's a continuing evolution, and understanding these dynamics empowers you to be a more informed observer and active participant in the future of learning.